One of the things you wrote about was Jordan Walker. You're in a piece about second-year players who have to improve, and I think I knew where you were going with that. But do you believe that Jordan Walker? Do you expect improvement from him defensively in 2024? And he's been working really hard on it. So what do you think?
Yeah, I expect him to improve. You know, it's so easy to forget that he was a third baseman until last year. I mean, they started thinking with him in the outfield, I believe, in Arizona Fall League 2022, or excuse me, 2023, right at the end of the regular season. No, 2022, I was there the first time. Anyway, yeah, I mean, you know, he's a better athlete than he looks given his size and strength, and I think that he's going to grow more comfortable out there with repetitions. And I'm not saying he's going to win a Gold Glove award, but I do think he's going to be better than one of the worst defenders in the league if you look at the defensive metrics last season.
I wanted to ask you this about Jordan Walker. I'm not sure what to expect because I want to be fair, I want to be rational, but all in all, and I know he still has a tendency to hit the ball on the ground too often. You'd like to see him elevate more often. I think he started to turn the corner on that a bit. But all in all, it's still, I think I appreciate his offensive numbers, after looking back on the season than maybe as it was happening in real time. It's pretty impressive from a guy that had never played above Double-A and 21 years old and did get sent down, whether that was fair or not. Right. What kind of offensive improvement would you expect from him? I've seen Zips and some of the other projection models, and let me put it this way. I wasn't blown away. I thought perhaps more would be projected for him. Could you please assess that for us?
Yeah, and you have to remember, those projection systems for the most part don't know about his tendency to hit the ball hard. They're based on what he's done statistically, and they're based on comparisons at similar ages. So, I think there's room for him to perform better than those suggest if he just makes some natural tweaks, because we know he is a very gifted player in terms of his innate strength, his ability to strike the ball. It's just a matter of getting into, the right launch position, basically, hitting the ball at the right angle. And I do think he will learn to do that. I think we have a lot of evidence of other players learning how to do that. I mean, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., for instance, was one example of a player who everyone said as soon as he starts to lift the ball, he's going to become an offensive force, a cleanup hitter. And now he's on the cover of the video game. So I think that there is enough precedent out there to expect more from Walker. I can't sit here and promise that it's going to all click into place this season. But if it did, it wouldn't really surprise me because it seems like he checks all the boxes. And I know from talking with evaluators and scouts that, in their opinion, it's a lot easier to teach someone how to hit the ball in the air a little bit more often than it is to teach them to hit the ball as hard as he does.
You did it was a nice, quick and easy read on the Cardinals' top three prospects in your estimation. I actually want to talk about number 3 on the list, which was the infielder that they got as part of the Montgomery Stratton trade, Thomas Saggese, 21 years old, and all he does is hit and hit and hit and hit. And rather than read your words back to you, could you tell our listeners, and they should go check it out at cbssports.com because it's excellent. What is it about Saggese that is special or something that just jumps out at you and the reason why you view him so highly?
Yeah, I think he has all the qualities to become a better big league player than he is a minor league prospect. And what I mean by that is that it's kind of a chrome-free game. He's never going to be the fastest or the strongest player on his own roster. But like you said, he can really hit. He finds the barrel. He has some defensive versatility. He can play second base. He can play third base. If you really need him to, he can slot in at short. And it's just a profile that I think the Cardinals have had a lot of success with. And I know that, within the industry, he has some pretty big fans. I mean, I was talking to people after they made that trade last July or August, and I knew people who had him as a top 5, maybe even better than that, prospect in the Ranger system. And we're talking about a Ranger system that, oh, by the way, had Evan Carter, who was, a star throughout the postseason, has Wyatt Langford, who is one of the best prospects in baseball after being drafted top 5 last July, and has some really famous names like Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter. So I think Saggese is going to become, a pretty, how do I put this? I think the evaluations on him are going to trend upward very quickly over the coming year, especially once he gets to the majors and people see what he can do, because I think there's almost, I think there's a pretty good chance he's going to become an above-average hitter, and I think that they might be able to position him just well enough defensively that he's actually sort of similar to Brendan Donovan in terms of total contribution. I think there's a real chance that he's like the breakout player of the year for the Cardinals in that respect.
Yeah, I've been excited by him ever since I found out about him when, you started tracking him in Double-A and then they moved him up to Triple-A. And listen, man, I'm not a scout, so I don't want to sound like some fraud trying to be one. I'm not. But, I looked at a lot of video because I was just curious. And the thing one thing that impressed my untrained eyes was he has such easy power. Like, he'd take a swing and there wasn't exertion. There wasn't, like, grip it and rip it, and he's lunging, and you're worried that he's going to like throw his back out or something. It was just such an easy, smooth swing, and then the ball would just fly over the wall, and you're like, wow, he just made that look easy. Does he? Look, you are familiar with some of the scouting vernacular. Does he have an easy swing, easy power in his swing?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the ball carries off the bat really well, despite him not being he's not exactly a menacing presence. He's not Jordan Walker up there. He's not Mal Holliday up there even. He's, a smaller guy. And, I would agree. It's almost like you're using the juice balls whenever you see his highlights, because it does seem like the ball carries way more than it should based on his swing and, his setup and all that good stuff. But it speaks to some of his innate strength, I think.
Looking back on that trade, and our guest is the esteemed R.J. Anderson from CBSSports.com. Going on the premise from the St. Louis angle, there was no way that they were going to re-sign Jordan Montgomery. It's just he was going to be on what they're comfortable spending. And Chris Stratton was a guy that they liked a lot. But given the fact that their season went down the drain pretty early, and Montgomery and Stratton were both in their walk year, but we'll just keep it on Montgomery. I mean, to get Tekoa Roby and to get Saggese, that's a really nice return, it seems, for two walk-year guys. And tell us what you think about Tekoa Roby, the right-handed pitcher.
Oh, yeah, he's been on my radar since his draft year. I know he's really well-regarded in terms of his makeup. He has, 2.5 to 3, maybe 4 pitches, depending on who you're talking to and how he's using them on any given day. And I know he had some medical issues, but we're talking about a potential middle-of-the-rotation starter who could debut this season. I thought that trade was really smart of the Cardinals at the time. The Rangers certainly aren't kicking themselves for it because Montgomery was a huge part of the World Series victory. But between that and Cole Reagan, it's an example of some win-now trades that might be a little painful later on until you take back to the championship parade.
R.J. Anderson had Mason Winn at the top of his 3-player list. And, listen, I'm struck by whenever I talk to Ali Marmol and John Mozeliak, I'm struck by how committed they are to him. I mean, they really love this guy, and it's a lot of it has to do with his makeup, too. They're just really impressed about how he goes about his business. So tell us what you see and why you like him so much. And I'm really glad that you do, because he came up and didn't hit very much. And you had Cardinals fans starting to freak out. Oh, is he really going to be able to hit? And I understand that. Growing up in Baltimore, I saw Cal Ripken break in and go 2 for 39. So I know what that's all like. But anyway, take it away, my friend. Mason Winn.
Yeah, that's another player I've liked since his draft year. I remember writing that at the time I thought he had the best chance outside of the first round to become a star. And obviously Evan Carter has proved that to be incorrect. But I still think that Winn has a chance to be a really good player. You're talking about someone who can play shortstop. He's a good athlete. Obviously has a very good arm. And then at the plate, you're right that, the results were not there at the big league level, but he did do some things well. He still made contact at an above average rate. He still commanded the zone at an above average rate in terms of his chasing outside of it. Didn't hit the ball with any kind of authority. And, we know based on his minor league data that there's more strength there. It's just a matter of, making better contact. And also, it wouldn't hurt if, he had some muscle to his frame over the course of the winter, like a lot of young guys do. So, I get it. I certainly understand that in the midst of a lost season, you were kind of looking to him to, be a sign of a brighter tomorrow. And unfortunately, it didn't quite work out that way. But there are a lot of players who come up, struggled in their initial exposures to the majors, either went down to the minors or had an off season to reflect and get better, and then came back and became above average big league players. And that's what I expect from him. If not right away this year, at least over the next, 2 to 3 years.
The thing that really impressed me, and I know Dane Perry, your colleague at CBSSports.com, was really impressed by this, and it's definitely notable. His first month in the big leagues, he chased everything, or so it seemed, and the numbers bear that out. And he may have drawn one walk, something like that. He didn't walk at all, and he was striking out a lot. And this is what the Cardinals really love about him. You know, at the time he's 21 years old, and you know, just making the leap basically from Double-A. I guess there's a little Triple-A mixed in there, but yeah. It's like he diagnosed where he was bad, and he completely flipped that equation around. Like in his second month with the Cardinals, all of a sudden he's got a big time walk rate. He's hardly striking out. He's not chasing pitches, and I'm thinking, you know, that's really impressive for a guy that young and inexperienced to be able to look at why he's not doing well and then immediately adjust. And the results are there to see the wisdom of his own his self-analysis.
Right. You know, failure is said to be the world's best teacher. And I know that from experience. And I think that, you know, it speaks well to him. You're right. And, you know, the difference between great big leaguers, good big leaguers, and average big leaguers, or below average big leaguers, is the ability to make those adjustments in a quick amount of time. And I think that I agree that bodes really well for his chances of figuring this out and becoming a productive player for the long haul.
R.J. Anderson, Tink Hence, we've been here in St. Louis. We've been talking and writing about him for quite a while, and he's an exciting talent. And you know, he has maybe turned one corner in that he has pitched and he has remained healthy. But are the Cardinals still, in your opinion, are they still being really cautious with his development? Has it slowed his development, or perhaps maybe enhanced it in a way that would suit the long term? Just tell us where he is in his evolution, because he hasn't pitched all that much, really. But is that a good thing?
Oh, it could be. I mean, you know, it keeps him healthy, right? In theory, at least. I think it's interesting because I'm noticing this league-wide where we have a lot of top pitching prospects who just really haven't thrown a lot of innings. Ricky Tideman with the Blue Jays is the number one out in Los Angeles. Bobby Miller, he came up last season and was good for the Dodgers. But if you looked at his minor league track record, you would have said, boy, they must not believe that he's a starter because he's throwing 3 or 4 innings per pop. And, you know, at 10, I don't believe he's even thrown 90 pitches in a game yet. And that seems really unusual, and it seems really out of place until you consider that greater league context where, you know, for better or worse, it's kind of becoming more of a standard or more of an accepted practice. And I think it has to do with the shifting workload responsibilities associated with starting pitchers. And I think there's also the school of thought within the game that the traditional 5-man rotation, the traditional starting pitcher are going by the wayside. And you're going to see less and less, dogmatic holds on those roles. Like, you're just not going to see the same thing we all grew up watching. It's going to be different. And I think that, you know, to try to tie a bow on this rambling answer, I think that the Cardinals maybe are just being realistic with where he is physically, and they're working with it, and they're trying to do the best they can to develop him while also being open-minded about what exactly that looks like for the future. It's possible that he's never going to be a 150-plus inning guy. It's possible that he's just a 100-inning guy. And he goes out there and throws 3 to 4 really good innings every 5th day or what have you. But I just think it has a lot to do with the changing sands underneath the game as much as his game and, you know, their developmental hopes for him.
The Cardinals have been very aggressive this offseason in terms of addressing a glaring need. It's not just starting pitching, and they signed the 3 starters that we've talked about before, but they've went out and gotten like 7 relievers. Now, you know, a couple of them are major league ready. A couple of them are, you know, I think we all like the work that Andrew Kittredge did with Tampa Bay, and he lost a chunk of his career to Tommy John, but by the end of last season, he was striking out hitters at a high rate again, so he should be okay. And then Keenan Middleton, I had him down back in December as like a guy the Cardinals ought to look at because, you know, once he started throwing that changeup and you know, to get hitters off his fastball, I mean, he really took off. Now, I know he walks too many guys. So, but and I'm sorry. I'm the one rambling. So I'm sorry about the question. But what do you think specifically about those 2 additions, Kittredge and Middleton, and then also some of the younger guys with some upside that I think frankly, Chaim Bloom maybe have recommended. He's got all these guys can be traced back to him. Ryan Fernandez, Nick Robertson, Riley O'Brien, guys like that.
Right.
Do you think they've done a good job of building their depth in the bullpen?
Yeah, I think it's been a pretty solid job. You're right that they didn't necessarily add a bunch of big names, but Kittredge, I believe, has made All-Star game before. I mean, he's been pretty good when it's healthy. And Middleton, you're right, he had kind of a breakout season last year. And he went through his own spell of injuries and some underperformance, but people forget that he was really good when he came up as a member of the Angels bullpen. So I think, if those are the only two veterans they add on the big league side of things, they'll probably be fine. You mentioned the minor league side, and Riley O'Brien is someone I liked as a prospect years and years ago when he was with the Rays organization. I thought he had a chance to become, if not a starting pitcher, at least a solid reliever. So I'm kind of hoping, just for his sake, but also a little bit for mine, that proves correct. And someone I'm not ready to give up on yet is Wilking Rodriguez. He's not exactly young by any measure, but he has a really fun story. He's pitching in Mexico a couple winters ago, and the Cardinals topped him in the Rule 5 draft. And unfortunately, he missed a lot of last year of injury, but, his stuff is bananas when he's healthy. I mean, it's big-time stuff. And if he can stay healthy at all, he might have a chance to contribute, I think, to the big league bullpen as well this year.
That's really nice to know. Seriously, thank you for the info. One more for you, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. As we sit here, and I think the Cardinals have definitely upgraded their pitching, maybe not as dramatically as some would hope, and I understand that.
Right.
How do you slot them into the NL Central, which is kind of the question? Unfortunately, we don't know exactly what the Cubs are going to do the rest of the way. I think we all anticipate a big move or two, but do you think the Cardinals will be in the thick of things with the team they have now?
Oh, yeah. I would say one or two. Like you said, it kind of depends on what the Cubs do and also what the Brewers do. I mean, they might not be done trading away veterans. It's possible they move Willie Adames. It's possible they move Freddie Peralta, Devin Williams. So we'll see there. But I would say one or two. This St. Louis team still has a lot of talent. I don't think that the gap is as big between them as in the Cubs. If there is a gap at all, as last season suggested, I think it was just, unfortunately, a really down year. And the additions they made, you're right, they're not necessarily going to win them off-season praise, but, there were several teams who wanted Kyle Gibson. He's always been pretty interesting, and maybe this is the year it unlocks for him. Lance Lynn, other than the home runs, which is a big deal, but, other than the home runs, he's still a reliable mid-rotation starter, and, we know historically extreme home run rates tend to regress, so I can see the vision there. And, of course, Sonny Gray, look, he's been a very good starting pitcher throughout his career. Never gets enough praise, in my opinion. Even though he finished very high in Cy Young Award voting, I feel like he's still kind of underrated and flying under the radar. So I think they had a solid offseason overall, and I suspect they're going to be in the National League Central hunt.
All the projection systems, that I've seen, the ones that we all know about, including Clay Davenport, they have Lynn, like maybe giving up 24, 25 homers. And if he does that, that's fairly normalized, that fly ball home run rate. He should have a solid season. And Dusty Blake, their pitching coach, has spotted a few things. And while John Mozeliak didn't share any of the specifics, I think pitch sequencing has a lot to do with it. They definitely have a list of recommendations that Lynn apparently has embraced. And they think he throws his four-seamer way too much. He may discover the wonders of the sweeper. Who knows? But I really like Gibson. I don't know, probably more than most. But anyway, I think locally those three starters are going to pleasantly surprise. Their impact's going to be a pleasant surprise to a lot of Cardinals fans. So it's going to be fun. It gives us something to look forward to, that kind of a fresh start. Right. I guess that's all I have for you, man. I didn't want to. Next time we talk, I want to ask you about Zach Thompson and Matthew Libator, because the Cardinals' depth behind their planned starting five in their rotation, I figure maybe one of those guys, maybe it'd be Tekoa Roby, but whether the Cardinals will have enough. And, is Libator better suited right now for a relief role? There's a lot of good questions about those two guys. They both have talent. Do you have a quick opinion on that? See, I'm sneaking another one in.
I was actually just going to say, even if you don't trust the Cardinals after last season, you have to remember, Gibson was with the Orioles, Lynn was with the Dodgers. Those are two of the top organizations and front offices in the game. So, there's a reason the players are attracted to those front offices is usually not because they stink.
Yeah, that's right. And didn't Gibson, didn't he get into the sweeper craze? Didn't he improve, whether you want to call it a slider or sweeper, whatever? Didn't he improve that part?
He's always had a good slider, though. So they might have tightened it up a little bit or tweaked it, but he's always had a pretty good slider. It's just a matter of, everything clicking in place for him. And unfortunately, it hasn't quite done it. So even though he's in his mid-30s, but who knows? That's the beauty about baseball. You can always have a breakout year in your late to mid-30s.
You're the best, man. Appreciate you very much, and we'll continue to read you as always at cbssports.com. And people should follow R.J. Anderson on Twitter or X at R_J_Anderson. Until next time, be well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Bernie.
You got it. That's our friend R.J. Anderson, cbssports.com. Jim Hewer, before we take a break here, this is something I've said on the show quite a bit. I'll say it again. It really does strike me when you talk to baseball analysts who are, national, let's say.
Yes.
They seem to have, almost to a person, a much higher opinion of where the Cardinals are right now, talent-wise, than a lot of the people in their fan base and even some in the St. Louis media do,
Yes.
And I find that refreshing because as you know, I have my head always immersed in research and finding things that really jump out at me, things that people don't know about or haven't considered, like when I talk about the 6+ inning starts and the quality starts and how this is solidified thing by a much larger impact than what people, I think, expect. But it is amazing to me, not amazing, but it's like maybe I shouldn't be surprised because the Cardinals, I think a lot of people are still in a state of somewhat shock because it was 71 and 91 last season. But the outside view tends to be a lot more favorable and positive. I don't know what that tells us. But R.J. Anderson knows his stuff, man. Mm-hmm. He does.
Yes.
I mean, he's worked in Major League Baseball, and Major League Baseball executives consider him one of the best guys out there in terms of analyzing the game from a media standpoint. I don't know what does that tell you, that the people on the outside who know their stuff are more favorably positioned in terms of viewing the Cardinals in 2024?
It's interesting the way they see it. Now, here's one thing that I maybe attribute to, the record was so awful last year, was once the deals were made, it was like it was giving up. I mean, when you look at the bullpen that they had at the last month of the season, and we've talked about those names, it was like you just gave up. It didn't matter. I'm just saying that big if the guys that were moved stuck around, they would not have been a contending team, but let's say they were 6, 7, 8 wins better, and now you've added a new group, so maybe they are closer to 83, 85, 86 wins had they really tried to field a team throughout the entire season rather than once the deadline came, it was like, we're just going to let the kids play and let these guys.
They were smart to take the approach that they did.
Because of that, I think maybe we're just saying, it was a 91 loss team. But when you start adding up some of the new additions and the factor in the part where they just gave up the last 2 months, maybe they can get closer because in reality, the team that they put out there, let's just say would have maybe lost, I don't know, like I said, 6, 7 games less. But that means they'd be 6, 7 games closer to improving where they are this year. So
but they also wouldn't have had a replenished pitching depth.
Right. But my point is, I think that's maybe why I keep thinking this team should be worse than what they are right now because they've actually improved quite a bit.
I think a lot of people are scarred. I don't blame them really. Because it was a horrendous season. It was uninspiring on virtually every level. It was pretty hard to watch. I get it. But, just like the teams have to turn the page and move forward and, try to do better, I think median fans probably should try to do the same rather than just kind of rehashing 2023, because you know what? All of us, including Bill DeWitt Jr., including John Mozeliak, including us, fans, everyone can agree on one thing. It was a disaster.
Yes.
But it's over. So what do you do? What are you going to do about it? Now, some people, because they didn't spend a fortune, will be completely disgusted by what they've done this offseason, because these are the people who I talk about ad nauseum. All they care about is like how much they spent. It doesn't matter whether their moves make sense. They'd be happy to see DeWitt do something really stupid as long as he's spending money. And I've never understood that mentality, but it really kind of that attitude like really kicks in after a bad year. They just think, well, you solve it by throwing money at it. Well, to an extent you do. Mm-hmm. But they were never, they never have and never will spend a fortune on a starting pitcher. We can agree to disagree, or we can actually all agree that they should every now and then take a big gamble. Okay, fine. But as I say so often, they've never been that organization, and I don't think they will be. But what they do is they look for good value, and I think they were able to do that with their starting pitching and their bullpen acquisitions this offseason. To me, it's a separate issue because because I'm glued to reality. I'm moored to reality. I thought there was pretty much zero chance that this whole Aaron Nola thing, I tried to tell everyone, well, listen,
right.
He's probably going to re-sign there. They want to keep him. But no. Everybody's, all the bloggers and the Post-Dispatch guys, and they're all, not Derek, but they're all writing Nola into the Cardinals rotation. And so when it doesn't happen, then that just adds to the fury about Bill DeWitt and spending. People, even late in the game, I mean, a week or 10 days, 2 weeks or 10 days before Yamamoto signed that monster deal with the Dodgers, you still had people saying the Cardinals were suitors. And it's like, no, they're not. Have you heard what the estimated price tag's gone up to? And so when he doesn't sign, then people get mad as if they got screwed or something, Mm-hmm. It's like, no, you were 100% unrealistic, and that's your problem, right?
Absolutely true.
So that stuff drives me nuts. I was reading a blog at Fanside about, I said, this ought to be good. It was about 4 major league owners who are ruining baseball in their towns and need to sell the team.
Oh.
Bill DeWitt was on the list.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. 71 and 91 last year, but before that they had made the postseason 4 times, 4 years in a row. Since 2011, only the I can't remember my own stats. Well, during his ownership, they're 4th in regular season winning percentage. Only 2 teams have appeared in more postseason games, and only one team has appeared in more postseason games, and only 2 teams have won more postseason games. And I know they haven't won a World Series for quite a while, but go talk to Yankees fans about that.
Yeah.
You might want to talk to Dodgers fans who got that one in the COVID season, but haven't had a World Series title in a full season since 1988. Around these parts, the fact the Cardinals haven't won a World Series since 2011, I'm almost expecting somebody to write or talk about how this is just as this is bad as anything the Red Sox and Cubs went through. The Red Sox they didn't win a World Series since 1918. The Cubs hadn't won a World Series since 1908. See, this is what the Cardinals are. The Cardinals are. They're right there. This is shaping up to be a Red Sox Cubs thing. There's just complete loss of perspective. The Bill DeWitt era in St. Louis has been fantastic. And if you say, well, why are you defending him so much lately? Well, because when I see just absolutely ridiculous, ludicrous things being said, that do not in any way reflect the truth of what his ownership regime has been like in terms of success. They go through a little bit of a playoff drought as far as winning games. You mean kind of like, 1-9 in their last 10? Okay. The Dodgers are 1-6 in their last 7 postseason games. The Yankees are 3-7 in their last postseason game. They spend a ton of money, don't they? These things happen.
Yes.
It doesn't mean Bill DeWitt's got to sell the team. Be careful of what the hell you wish for, right?
That's such a silliness.
He's got to sell the team. I think
he's got to work on it, but he don't need to sell it.
2011, they made they made the playoffs more than I think it was more than any other team except maybe the Dodgers or maybe maybe the Braves, and but they're like in the top 2 or 3 no matter what it is. Since Bill DeWitt's been the owner, I mean they've won more in terms of winning percentage than like 27 franchises, and they've won more in the postseason more than like 26 franchises. Sell the team now. I mean, seriously.
I chuckle because, we mentioned at the start of the show what
My
the heck's
goodness.
going on in Oakland. That needs to sell the team, not what's going on here, people. Calm down.
And Uncle Bernie's been saying, for years now, I'm not sure you want him to spend a lot of money because this is one of the things that has screwed them up. They don't spend big money very well. There are exceptions to that, of course. Matt Holliday contract, the free agent contract, that worked out very, very well. Right?
Yes.
I think the Goldschmidt investment has worked out very, very well. Arenado, so far, so good, but I have concerns. But, Dexter Fowler, $82.5 million, just thrown into a roaring fireplace.
Panic move, too.
Yeah.
We got to get somebody.
The situation with Mike Leake.
Yeah.
5 years, $80 million. And they couldn't wait to get him out of here, and they had to pay Seattle money to get to absorb some of the contract that was remaining. All those bad relievers. What was that number I had? Like $60 million?
It was high.
On Cecil and Miller and Holland, and somebody else was in there. What?
It's a lot of bad.
What they need to do is to resume to change their system, the way they identify, draft, and develop young pitching. And it amazes me that people lived through all that and saw the incredible value of drafting and developing your own pitching for the most part, and the huge impact it had on the franchise and how sustainable it was for a long period of time. I don't know why more people in our business and just out there who proclaim that they follow the Cardinals close, they're missing the big picture of what all of this is about. It isn't the spending. It's the fact that they let their enduring strength, developing their own pitching, starting and bullpen, they let an enduring, sustainable strength, they let it weaken to the point where it became a liability and the bottom fell out in 2023. That's their biggest. If you're going to talk about baseball crimes and misdemeanors, that's number one on the list. That is. Not the payroll. You know what his average payroll has been in 28 seasons? 10.6.
That's more than respectable.
I got more than that. I got a lot more than that. If you can't win consistently with a top 10 payroll, there's a lot of teams that do, and there are a lot of teams that will. You can win at that level of investment. In fact, I know one of the reasons why I know this? Because the Cardinals have won more regular season games than all but 3 teams since 1996, and They've won more postseason games than anybody. It's either one or two teams since 1996. And they've done fine with a number 10 average payroll. You know? It's the drafting and the development of pitching, okay?
It's true.
That's what it is. That's the problem. Go ahead. Sorry.
I got a text here kind of says what you're talking about. It says, I don't want DeWitt to sell the team at all, but it sure would be nice to have the old DeWitt back. What you're kind of talking about, how they did business before.
Yeah, but I think that means they got it. That's one of the things that gives me hope with Chaim Bloom coming in, because they got their model is outdated and they've kind of gotten stale, and at least they recognize they need to bring some fresh vision and a fresh voice in here with Chaim Bloom, and I think he's already made an impact, and I think if he continues to make an impact and he's happy, it would be ludicrous to not let him take over when Mo decides to step down. You know?
Yeah.
They needed that outside imprint, because that's one of the reasons why they did so well developing their own pitching, because of the Jeff Luhnow factor. So they need to go back to something like that. They need to have another prominent voice with some fresh ideas and a fresh approach in the front office. That's where this thing has sort of curdled and gone sour, you know? On the other hand, they're doing a better job than they have in a long time in terms of developing position players. And so they put a lot of emphasis on that, and I think they let the pitching development slide. They got to find that balance, you know? But they also just need some new thinkers in there, fresher ideas, you know?
Agreed.
Doesn't have much at all to do with payroll. But it's easy to just scream and squawk and caterwaul about payroll. You're missing the real reason why they have backed up. The payroll has been consistent for 28 years. All right, I'll shut up now.
I got one more to share with you from
Go
the
ahead,
text
please.
line. It says, it refers to the Jerry Jones effect. He says, when an owner gets stuck in their ways, they often never peak like they once did in their early stages of their career.
Except Jerry Jones was smart enough to realize Jimmy Johnson was the guy to rebuild the Cowboys, and he let him do it. And they became a great, great team. And they won 3 Super Bowls because of Jimmy Johnson's building and developing the roster and just going in a new direction. So Jerry's problem wasn't that he got old and set in his ways. Well, actually it is. I mean, he got old and set in his ways in terms of thinking he's a general manager, thinking that he's a football man.
Right.
Because he played at Arkansas. And chasing off a great coach. And he's had a sequence of mediocre average coaches since then, you know? That was Jerry's hunger for power and credit and to satiate his ego. Mm-hmm. That's what that was all about. I don't think that's it for Bill DeWitt at all. I just think Bill DeWitt, and I'm going to try to talk to him about this to learn more, but where they made the wrong turn in terms of the things they prioritize and how that started to go bad. That it surprises me, because Bill DeWitt was ahead of the curve. He was way ahead of the curve compared to other MLB owners. And they kind of let that advantage kind of erode, and it reached the breaking point this past season, you know?
Agreed.
It's not the payroll. And I don't know why. Can we play? Is there another note that we can play? It's like the same one note thing over and over and over again. Right?
Not spending enough. Question from the text line for you. It says, does Randy Flores get any blame for this?
Well, he certainly has not distinguished himself in terms of drafting and developing pitching. And when these guys start to arrive on our shores and they turn out to be good pitchers, I'll be happy to say, well, there was a gap there, but look, they've got some pitching on the way now, and it looks to be really good. Maybe guys like Graceffo and Tink Hence can change that. Ian Bedell, some other ones. But yeah, sure he does. Absolutely. But I also think they wanted to prioritize position players because what did we all bellyache, including me? What did we all bellyache about for years? Well, they can't develop their own hitters. They always got to go trade for them. When's the last time the Cardinals had a power hitting guy that they drafted and developed? I mean, there was a long gap there. Well, they really attacked that in the draft, and they did well, I think. In fact, I think they did very well in addressing that weakness. Now they got to sort of get back to the pitching side to do it. Again, new thinkers can help that.
I'm with you. I'm curious to see what this refocus on pitching will do because I'll be honest, Bernie, the last couple of days I've been reading stories about pitchers now. They're starting to go here and here and here. And it seems like every story I read, well, this guy has been working on straightening out this pitch or that pitch and this. It's like every organization now is like, oh, we spotted something here with this. Hopefully the Cardinals can start doing that with these guys they got because it seems like it's everywhere now. That's at least the storylines that's being given for every guy who, well, his ERA was high, but we figured this out.
Yeah.
And he's going to do this now, so we'll see.
Well, that gets back to another, again, the whole problem they have with pitching, and a lot of it has to do with infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And they don't have the infrastructure that other teams have built to gain an advantage. It's become very complicated. It's been technological driven, and other organizations have just come up with so many different ways, so many tools that they can use to make their own people better, or to get someone from the outside and make him better. The Cardinals also slipped there. Now they're starting to address it belatedly, but at least they're starting to address it. They've added extra coaching, which they needed. They were behind the industry standards on that as far as pitching. At some point, they got to get around to building that pitching lab, but because of the delay in the construction of the renovations down in Jupiter, that's kind of set that back because of the physical space. They're still short on it. So I don't know what the timetable is for that, but that's a factor. No, they need to get up to speed on those things. Mm-hmm. Look at Keenan Middleton. I broke it down for everybody the other day. I mean, if you all listen to me, I back things up to explain to you how it can be done. Just look at Keenan Middleton. He's throwing 96-mile-an-hour fastballs, and everyone said, wow, man, this guy can bring it. Yeah, except major league hitters, especially the guys that have been growing up in Major League Baseball for the last 7-8 years or whatever, last even 5 years. What, you don't think these guys can hit 98-mile-an-hour fastballs? They have to, or they wouldn't survive. Hitters have adapted. They can hit the hard stuff. So if you throw a 96-mile-an-hour fastball, you better have something else because they'll just sit on that and they'll get a hold of them. And that's what it was doing. Well, whether it was the White Sox or the Yankees, someone said, listen, man, you need to develop something soft. You need to develop a changeup. You need to use more of it because it's pretty good. And you don't use it enough, and they just wait for your fastball. He's increased this for people to miss it. Keenan Middleton has increased the usage of his slider dramatically over the last 3 years. In last season, when he had his best major league season, that included a 30% strikeout rate, his slider usage was up to 43%. And now hitters they're like, well, wait a minute, man. All he used to do is pump those fastballs. Now he's giving us a lot to look at and think about. Yeah. Sometimes it's really that simple. I think Sonny Gray's going to have an impact here because he's reinvented the way he's pitched because he's a really smart guy. He got a lot of help from the Minnesota Twins infrastructure, and he can sort of bring that gospel to St. Louis with the sweeper and how to make your slider better. They have people that can help, but they've got to help themselves. I'm talking about the organization. They got to get back up to speed. That's where they need to put their money instead of wasting it on some janky-ass reliever.
I'm with you.
You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, and I just looked at the calendar. We got a little over a week, and we'll start that process, and hopefully we'll start getting some wins out of that category.